highlight. This time we'll be talking with Dr. Lillian Céspedes González, and I apologize if I mispronounced that.
No, that was actually pretty accurate. I'm pretty pleased with that. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and she heads Travelusion Tours. Just to start us off, as we always do, our mission here at Save Ancient Studies Alliance is to reverse the current downward trend in the study of the ancient world by engaging the public and bringing together students and scholars to share their passion for the study of the ancient world in order to inspire a vast new generation of students. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. This time I actually updated this to show our new TikTok at Save Ancient Studies. Definitely follow us there. Our live event protocol is to please be kind and respectful, listen and ask thoughtful questions throughout the event. You can always add things in the chat and we'll read them off. Please be patient with technology and those administering it. And the SASA live events, as said, are already live streamed. The recordings will also, I promise I know words, they will also be posted on above platforms shortly after the event. So Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, look for us there. Lastly, if you enjoy our live events, our archaeo gaming, book clubs, reading groups, our recent conference that was just yesterday and Sunday, please consider becoming a supporter with a monthly donation. For as little as $3 a month, you can help us to save ancient studies. And thank you for joining us. I'll now stop my screen share. And yeah, Dr. Lillian, please share us a bit about your project and Travelusion Tours.
Yeah, so some of you may already recognize my face from a couple of other things we've been doing with SASA. We did 3 archaeo tours earlier on this year, which are actually my passion, and partially one of the reasons why I started Travelusion Tours the way I do things. Now, a little bit of my background, just so it can all make sense and you will not think I'm just a crazy woman talking for the sake of it. So I have a PhD in history from the University of Winchester here in the UK. I finished my PhD actually in the middle of the pandemic, but even before I finished my PhD, I sort of had already come to the conclusion that many other ancient and medieval scholars had before me, that unfortunately the way things are right now means that even with a PhD, you're not guaranteed a job. You know, it doesn't mean you're set for life. And in fact, a lot of people with PhDs and jobs in university, they are not necessarily working full time or anything like that. So I knew I was going to have to fend for myself. And in the meantime, while I had been doing my PhD, I had been working as a tour guide here and there for nearly 10 years, and I just loved it. It was one of the very, very first moments of my life when I actually realized that sharing history with people was just so important. You know, it wasn't just about making history happen and doing research and bringing those voices to the forefront. I was like, well, it's very great that I've written this PhD, but if no one gets to hear these stories, then what does it matter?
Yeah.
And you know, let's face it, the academic world is very much a bubble of its own right. So not everyone gets to get access to that type of information. So I very much decided at a sort of early stage of my postgraduate studies that tour guiding and working with the public as a public historian was definitely something that was important for me and that I wanted to take forward. So I toyed with the idea of becoming a tour guide for quite some time. Then PhD final stages happened, so I sort of parked that for a little bit. And then the pandemic happened. And I think, you know, that gave us a lot of time, everybody, to think about life, the future.
Oh boy, did it.
You know, I was still thinking, okay, I want to tour guide and all of this, but I want to do it on my own terms. For those of you who may not know, the tourism industry is incredibly cutthroat, just even more so than academia. And there are some very, very unhealthy practices that I was like, I don't want to be part of that world. And I think that world is hurting, well, not just the planet for starters, it's a serious problem for the environment, but people and society and heritage because of the way we interact with these things. You know, I became just really upset about the fact that a lot of places, such as, let's say, for example, Rome, right, a worldwide city with millions of tourists every year, some people just literally just go there to take the photo and move on. And it's like, that just seems so wrong. But what made it all even worse was the fact that I realized, because for a while I work in healthcare, that there was actually an awful amount of people, and I genuinely mean an awful amount of people, that weren't even able to go and take a picture. They just simply couldn't travel for whatever reason. One of the working partners that we have now in Travelusion Tours has estimated that there is as many as 4 million Americans that can not just leave the United States because a holiday in Europe may be, too expensive, but leave their homes to actually engage with culture. And that's awful. From my opinion, that's not fair. That's so many people that we are excluding from, well, not just tourism, but culture and heritage without no reason. So I started looking into this a lot more and realized that virtual tourism had started picking up, which is where the archeo tours came in. And I genuinely decided this had to be at the core of anything that we did in Travelution. Like in the UK, there is only either a corporation or a non-profit, but in the United States, Travelution would be considered a B Corp, because although we are for-profit, I have bills to pay, unfortunately. Yeah. Everything that we do has a social purpose. We are always looking into ways we can give back to the community and create an actual community, not just of tourists around the world, but a community that is also good and beneficial for the locals, because that's something that in tourism has just been lost for a very long time. And again, the pandemic sort of highlighted this, right? All of those cities that without tourists were just empty spaces, and the locals were like, well, what about us? What do we do now? So that was one of the reasons why the project became together. The other one was just the fact that I just genuinely wanted to share my passion for history and culture, whether it was my specialty or not, with as many people as possible. And, when you're doing a face-to-face tour, you only have so many people that you're responsible for. The virtual world opens you up to connect with so many people. So the project really just became a way of mixing my two passions, which are educating people and showing beautiful places together, while, trying to make things more affordable, more accessible, very important, that point specifically, and more sustainable for everyone. And that's how Travelusion Tours became a thing, and what we've been trying to do so far. If that I think that more or less summarizes it.
Oh, definitely. No, that was a good summary for sure. It gave me a lot, to kind of go off on here and I think the accessibility thing is a key part of what you're doing, at least, shout out to us good old Americans and the limitations that, I work in healthcare. I could go on for so long about, what that means for people, especially as far as travel and education and how it limits them. What has been, do you think, kind of the biggest challenge for you in overcoming?
The biggest challenge has definitely made people realize that I'm not crazy. And I genuinely mean that, both, I guess, is the problem when you're going against two fields that are just so set in stone, all at the same time. Yeah. No one wants to make those changes when actually those changes benefit everyone. So, for example, striking partnerships with museums and local heritage venues here in the UK has been very, very tough, nearly impossible, because I don't know exactly if it's a matter of them feeling like they are not in control of the narrative and that therefore that's been taken away from them, or if it's a matter to do with money or elitism. I think there's many, many different things that go into it, but that's actually been perhaps one of the hardest problems. And it's an ongoing problem for museums here in the UK. Museums in this country and heritage venues in general are no longer run as educational sites or cultural sites. They are businesses. And I mean, just like McDonald's. And yeah. I know that comparing the Tower of London to McDonald's may seem like a crime, but it is. They sell you tickets at a price that a lot of the time is completely extortionate. That means only a certain people can access. So you can see not a lot in a very short period of time, so that then you can spend even more money in the gift shop buying, whatever type of thing marketing has pushed you to buy at that specific moment in time, etc., etc. And there is just so much, so much money drive in this industry now, that it becomes really hard to actually get them to cooperate with you for the betterment of society, which you would think they would seem, a lot more open to. But I mean, the other side of that story, of course, is that a lot of sites and museums in the UK and in the rest of the world are facing, financial difficulties or
for
staff
sure.
difficulties.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that the humanities are not very well supported is definitely an issue, because it means they are not getting anything out of it. I am not getting anything out of it. Everyone else at home is not getting anything out of it. And it becomes a very, very horrible, vicious circle that you kind of are just chipping away, in small bits. So that's definitely been the biggest challenge, is just actually finding not business partners from any other position in the terms of platforms that would work with us, or people to talk about what we do, or not from that perspective, but actually to open up those doors in terms of accessibility, particularly to all of those other people who can't go in there, or that even if they could go in there, would struggle, understanding objects on their own, and they would need someone to help them navigate that type of sphere. So that, I would say, that's definitely been the most frustrating part of that, alongside with just people not seeing the potential. In this horrible heat wave we've been having, I have guide friends in India who normally would be traveling with 100 people behind them at 40 degrees. That's not particularly safe for anyone,
Yeah.
let alone fun. So if I can at least bridge that gap by taking my equipment out there and showing someone through a screen, I appreciate it's not the same, but it's a way we can move forward and make things in a way that is more flexible and better for everybody. So it's really just a matter of just trying to get to people in a way that they are more receptive and open in their minds. That's definitely been the biggest challenge. But I mean, I say that, and it may all sound a little bit negative, but we've also had great successes on that front. We've managed to establish some partnerships on that front, which are actually really good, and we hope more will follow. And I mean, the other part about challenges is that it also makes it fun, and it gives you a little bit of fire to get things forward, because it also proves that you have a point, right? And
exactly.
What I always have thought and advocated for is that I may be crazy, but if there is at least 5 other people willing to listen to me, then my craziness is founded in something. And for as long as those 5 people are willing to listen, I will carry on barking.
And even I'm passionate. Yeah, I just keep going if I'm really passionate.
For sure. But that's definitely been the struggle, just breaking those preconceptions, because these worlds that I'm trying to merge together are just very, very rigid. By the way, I say I'm trying to merge together. I'm not the only person in any way, shape, or form.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But then again, that also becomes a problem, because a lot of people make that a competition rather than a collaboration. So it's a very new space that definitely needs a lot of work and care to be put into it. So it goes slow, but it goes forward, and that's the important thing.
Oh, for sure. And it's all about creating options. The more options there are, the more we can reach people just in general. So why not?
Yeah. Exactly. That's genuinely, yeah. And from that perspective, it's just so rewarding when you just get that message or that letter or email from someone saying, hey, because of you, I was able to see or learn about this thing that I've always wanted to in my life, but I never had the opportunity to. That type of stuff to me is better than money. Like, money is just something I need so that my landlord doesn't kick me out of the house. It's a necessity. But knowing that, because I took those risks and those decisions, and I decided that my passion wasn't going to be dictated by whether academia decided I was good enough or not, that's allowed someone else to actually, see the world in a different perspective. That's incredibly powerful. And those are the people who at the end of the day will then be contributing to efforts such as SASA and many other things out there to change the world at a, lower level, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, we need that too. We can't just have, I think those, I call it the ivory tower syndrome. We can't just have people up there. We need to also, reach down, especially if we want to grow as a field.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
we're doomed.
exactly. Why are we doing it otherwise?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess kind of on the flip side of that, have you had any, I don't know, sites or anything in particular that you've really enjoyed doing that?
Yeah, loads of them. I mean, I did really enjoy, just finished literally last week or so doing the reading group for SASA. It was genuinely just so, it was so nice being in a classroom where people actually wanted to learn. I know that sounds, very terrible, but the educational system, at least in the UK, is become so that when I used to teach, you would have supposedly 40 students and you would see 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bit depressing, you would think, well, you're paying all this money, you might as well make the most of it. But being in that context with people genuinely wanting to learn was definitely great. And I mean, I say the reading groups just because it's something that's happened very, very recently. But one of our other business partners, for example, are an English school. Mm-hmm. Who like doing master classes and having virtual tours or archeo tours around the world so that their students can practice English, because it puts things in a different context.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful being able to take people on that journey of kind of self-discovery. It generally just brings me so much joy. And I will admit that the vast majority of those moments of complete grin on my face and feeling really proud of myself happen with the virtual tours and the archeo tours, because the people who decide to book a walking tour or a day tour, whatever, mm-hmm. they're generally making that out of their own right. They normally are used to doing this thing. You know what I mean? They already come with a certain idea of what their enjoyment of history and culture should be. And you're not breaking as many barriers in there. You're just introducing them to the world, a bit deeper, to beautiful sites that otherwise without you they would not have been able to realize or whatever. But normally in those archeo tours or virtual tours, you just have that moment of people being just completely mesmerized and kind of like acknowledging that they can also be part of that conversation and have that impact, which honestly is just the best part. If just by taking my phone out to the world and showing you a medieval tower, I can change mm-hmm. your day, and that's literally just me doing this, for about 20 minutes, so that you can see something on the screen and that changes things for you, that just wows me. That just genuinely makes me feel like all the work that lead up to that was 100% worth it. And mm-hmm. and that's definitely the part that I definitely most enjoy about the job, the genuine human connection that you build through allowing people to be part of that story, to be part of history, to be part of culture, to be part of ancient studies or anything else that you may be doing. Like, we don't only just do history tours, we also do some other cultural experiences. For example, we do some cooking and food history sessions. Mm-hmm. So it was last week, in the middle of the heat wave, for example, I taught some people how to do gazpacho, which is the traditional Spanish soup that is called, I thought it was appropriate and something worth sharing with people. And it was great because we all ended up making this thing, which was perfect for the weather. So that's a win already. And they got to understand, the role that food plays in the culture of Spain. I had a little bit of Spanish music in the background, which they had never listened to. So it gave them, extra depth. And it was, a different way of just engaging with society and the people around us. That is just again, so beautiful. So, you don't even necessarily need to leave the home to do that. Even a Zoom room like this could just contribute and show people so much of it. But definitely one of the things that I'm taking is it's not so much revenge on academia, but a guilty pleasure in doing is using materials that otherwise would have been, going to research publications or conferences whatsoever, and do them as open lectures for the public.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And just share that same information, but with, Dave down the road and Mary up the street, and actually seeing that they get it, that they don't need to have a PhD or whatever to comprehend what I'm saying, because the public are not stupid like we pretend that they are. That the public are actually educated and they want to be educated. They just need that opportunity. So it's honestly those moments when, to me, it's just the best part of it, reading and researching and, all of those things, and talking about the things that I like, of course, is great, and I take a lot of pleasure on it. But it's seeing that impact being passed on to someone else that genuinely makes this a very, very rewarding job. And that doesn't matter how many books I would publish in the universe, that wouldn't change, because it's not the same thing that you get back, for sure.
Exactly. And I found myself curious, in the wake of COVID or during COVID, did you see a increase in demand for virtual tours?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. In fact, the vast majority of our platforms where we do the tours, there's many different ways. We do them privately over Zoom. We do them openly through other providers. You can, by now, particularly since the pandemic, you can pretty much take your pick and decide which way you want to do it. So it's definitely gone up, and I genuinely think there was a little bit of opportunistic development that happened there, which, to be fair, is what it is. And if it helps moving the field forward, then that's absolutely great. But there is still so many people that don't know about it, for example, and a lot of people who also said, well, this is just for the pandemic, this is not going to work afterwards. And I was like, you're so unaware.
Exactly.
You're so unaware of the fact that at least 80% of the historical sites in the UK alone are not accessible for someone on a wheelchair, let alone, someone who may be blind or hearing impaired, or that may have severe autism and that needs a quiet space to, access these places. It may not be in as much demand. And of course, a screen, I don't think, can ever really replace the real deal. But it doesn't mean that it's not useful.
Exactly.
And it's not just the fact that it's a tool for tourism. It's the fact that now that people understand what you can do with it, it's educational. Because, it's all very good me showing you a PowerPoint with pictures and whatnot. But if instead of showing you the PowerPoint, I can share that same information by, actually being there and live streaming this, isn't that so much more cooler and better way of connecting with things? And it just opens many possibilities. And I think it also democratizes this whole process. Tourism, again, has always been very controlled, and of course you need to have certain standards, but it doesn't mean that just because you don't have a particular qualification, you're less knowledgeable or less aware than someone else about ancient history or the Roman world or whatever else you want to be. So it allows a lot of people, good content creators out there, to actually share things from their own personal perspective. Of course, it also means that a lot of people utilize it for the wrong reasons, but well, I mean,
of course, I mean, we've always had that, though, right?
Exactly.
It's always been that.
It's not going to be something that changes regardless of what we develop, but the fact that that is an option for however many people out there in the world, and particularly for young people, which I know that seems, it's interesting. A lot of the receivers on the end of virtual tours particularly are people of a certain age. I would say normally 50 plus, normally because of health conditions that can't move. We have a few care homes that actually come on these tours because obviously they can't leave. But there is also a lot of, on the opposite side, a lot of young people who taking advantage of the fact that they understand technology, or maybe they're a bit more adept with it. They can now actually give their point of view about stuff that previously was perceived to be, something that, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this and I'm not going to apologize, but white guys in tweed could talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So it is powerful. It's a very powerful tool. And of course, I'm not suggesting all of those content creators and all of those guides or anybody are all the same and they're selling the same thing and they're in it for the same reasons. But that must count for something, if it's allowing all of those people from so many different backgrounds to come together to enjoy history and to enjoy culture, that is worthwhile, period. So it is a good thing, even though it may have a few complications.
Exactly. No, it is. I think we all have someone in our personal lives who something like this, could benefit. I think of like my father, health concerns, can't drive for more than half an hour. So going to someplace, other than local is out of the question a lot of the time. So absolutely. So I do think we're just about up for time here. I know we said we'd be about a half hour, but I do want to thank you once again for sharing, your thoughts and your work with us and collaborating so much on what we do here at SASA with us. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we end the stream?
No, I mean, honestly, I just love working with you guys because, I think we see things pretty much from the same perspective. I've always believed that the more people that can get access to the world, whichever way this is, whether it's through archeo gaming, if you play video games and that inspires you to think about history and the ancient world, that's a good thing. If you do needlework and this, makes you think about how people in Egypt did it, awesome. Who cares? As long as it gets you thinking about it, then it is a good thing. So honestly, just what I want to say, which is pretty much what I've been saying, is, for anyone out there who may still be not sure or who may not be entirely confident about whether they belong in these type of spaces, whether it's ancient studies traditionally or more, through technology or whatever it is, there is definitely a place for everybody. And some of us, SASA, Travelusion or whatever, we're working really hard to make sure that there is a space for you. So, just join the effort, because this is generally how we're gonna make the future of our cultures, of our societies a lot better, I think. But well, I'm biased, so
no, you're absolutely right. They will put out a call right here. If anyone has a project they want to highlight, anything, reach out to us. Let us know. We'll work with you. If you have questions, let us know. We'll help.
Exactly. And that's all. Thank you so much for having me. I love being here, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things, which I genuinely think should be, heard more and talked about more in all of the spaces that we work, whether it's the virtual world, whether it's the face-to-face world, the ancient studies world, or any other aspect of the humanities. This stuff is here to stay. So
absolutely. Thank you.